I'm a yoga teacher, and I've been a yoga teacher for 20 years. I'm also an actress, and I came from California. I'm a theater actress originally in San Francisco and came here to do more theater. And when I got here, I had sort of had a nervous breakdown in New York because it was, to me, so big. And I've lived in other really big cities. Like I'm from San Francisco. I've lived in Berlin, Germany, which is not a small city. But there was something about New York, the energy here, that kind of blew my mind. And I think I was going through a lot of changes personally. I was like in my Saturn return when I was, turning 30. And just a lot of questions about my purpose in life. And so I turned to yoga, and I found a yoga studio that really spoke to me. And a few years went by, and I had all this theater training, and I started thinking, like, how am I going to help my face the way? And it was like, let me use some of what I know from yoga plus what I know from voice and energy work, and I just put it into like a blender and made a workshop and started inviting people to take my yoga face class, and it again just really took off. I just want to dispel this idea that we, especially as women, lose our power or lose our attractiveness just because we age. I mean, everybody ages. You're human. You're going to age. So there should be no shame in that. We should be proud, And it's not just about like a spiritual thing only. Like when I first got my book deal, my editor, I wrote a chapter on makeup, and he's like, I'm so glad you're talking about makeup and that you don't feel like you shouldn't wear it. And I'm like, no, those are like old divisions. Like, it's not black and white, all or nothing. You can be healthy and love yourself and be spiritual and still enjoy, putting on some makeup and getting dressed up. Like, I'm still a woman, So it's really, this is the thing about the yoga face. Yes, it works on kinesiology, it works on exercise and biological foundations, anatomy, but really it's about the energy. And our energy is ageless. As long as we're alive, we have energy. Everything has energy. Rocks have energy, it's all like vibrating. Yeah. So we tune ourselves with the yoga. We're like tuning forks, and we become channels, and we open up our channels. And the beauty comes from the inside. The youth comes from the inside. It has nothing to do, we can slow down the clock, and the more we connect with our spirit, the less we are bound by ideas of aging, because a lot of it is your mindset, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And like, I would have a colleague, her name is Claudia Garcia. She's in Colombia, and she was another person who found my work early on, and she's a plastic surgeon, believe it or not. And a lot of the exercises, when I was researching doing face yoga, I went to plastic surgeons because they would come up with exercises to help people keep flexibility in their face. This was before injections, when people were just doing surgeries to lift faces. But Claudia, she really believed in my work, and she wrote a book in Spanish that was similar, and we've stayed friends, and she looks great too, and she doesn't do any fillers at all, and she has like no wrinkles. Her face is full, and it's the same thing. It's like energy. She's a very spiritual person. She's not a yogi. She's Catholic, but she's like very devout, but she also does the exercises. And in my heart, I never really knew if she was doing fillers because she's like so smooth, right? Yeah. And I kind of always assumed she was doing a little because she's a plastic surgeon, right? And then we did a live the other day on Instagram, and we talked about it. She's like, no, I don't do any fillers. And I was like, me neither. So I was really happy to hear that, Found aspect of this is really like self-love and what your inner monologue is, how you talk to yourself and what your beliefs are. I feel that we have been grounded, like when you're a kid and your parents ground you to your room to think about what you've done. I feel like the universe is grounding us. We're like, you're grounded, you have to be in your room and think about what you're doing and change before you can leave. Yeah. Joy is really important. Joy is important. Happiness is important. Like health and wellness is our nature. It's our truth as a species. And I think, especially with yoga, you're getting connected to the physical. We've become so in our heads and so in technology. We've left the earth. And the answer is back in the body. And yoga is an embodied experience of spirituality and connectedness. And that's our humanity, Like, we're meant to breathe. We're meant to stretch. We're meant to be physical beings. We're meant to love, and all of that. Yoga's love. It's just being in a state of love. And if it feels good, do it. Just do it. This is the time now. It's not going to be later. You can't be like, I have to get my act together now and then I'll do what I want to do. The only moment we have is now. One of the definitions of the word yoga is one-pointed focus. And when you one-pointedly focus on something, you merge with that thing. And it could be in anything. Like, have you had the experience of doing something you really love, whether it could be like playing the piano or a hobby you have, or being with a person and it feels like time just either stops, right? You're like in a zone. That's the definition of yoga, is being in the zone with something and being very one-pointed to the point where it's like a meditation. So that's the thing that I find is the biggest benefit, is my mind gets very clear like a laser, and I relax and I'm happy, and I feel like I'm more intuitively led to what needs to happen. Things come into my life, people come into my life, and it's not as hard. Things are just more joyful. Stomach's gonna get really cut, your obliques are gonna get really, for me, it's the best way to shape your body. And you do have to use some resistance, but that's, your body is on resistance, like planks. We do a lot of planks. And then we get the cardio when we're doing the faster sun salutes. So to me, it's the perfect movement system. You get everything from it. You get muscle building, you get length, and you sweat. So some of the things you can do to help your yoga help your running is stretch your hip flexors, stretch your calves, stretch your hamstrings. Your posture will improve. Posture is really important if you want to run well. You see a lot of people who run inefficiently and they're hunched over because their hip flexors have gotten very tight. And I've done a lot of therapeutic work with people who kind of overdid it with one activity. Sometimes we're in fight or flight response, parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So when you're in stress all the time, your adrenals, you go into adrenal imbalance, and yoga switches your nervous system from fight or flight into the relaxation response. So even if you only do some light yoga, but you rest and you're doing poses that help to encourage that, you're getting more balance and you're getting out of fight or flight. Now, fight or flight is very aging. It dries, adrenal imbalance dries out your skin. It makes your hair fall out. It can have an impact on your thyroid. A lot of yoga poses actually help with compression in the organs, and they help regulate hormonal balance. They do more medical research. They realize that most disease is caused by inflammation and cancer. And when you're injured in a sport, there tends to be swelling or inflammation, and yoga definitely helps to decrease inflammation. Principles, it's muscles of the face respond to exercise like any other muscles. They're not composed in any different way. They're made out of the same stuff. They do the same stuff. They contract and they elongate. There's concentric and eccentric muscular activity. For the facial muscles are considered to be involuntary in the sense that they thought that you couldn't train them, but it's actually not true. You can train your face muscles. It just takes a little concentration, but they're not like your arms where you can lift weights. They can't pick anything up. So you have to apply some resistance to the face, like a finger here. Like if I'm working this muscle and I want to lift up so that I don't have this line as much. And I agree. I think it's just in human nature to move, and any movement is good, provided it's not a dangerous movement. Facial yoga helps you to rewire your brain, and it helps induce bilateral communication between the right and the left brain, because you're training small muscles that don't know how to move. So it's actually really good for brain health, and it gets you out of that anxiety state. They've medically proven that one of the best ways to get out of anxiety is by inducing bilateral communication. So I think that for somebody who's differently abled, it might be very soothing and calming to have them do some face exercises. And other than that, the breathing work that we do in yoga is something that anyone can do. One of my best friends is actually differently abled, and when we knew each other many years ago, we were in a theater company together, and she was a dancer, and then she became an acrobat, and she had an accident, and now she's paraplegic. but she still teaches yoga and she still practices the yogic breathing and a lot of the energy work. So you really don't need to move that much physically to feel the benefits. There's always something you can do.
Yeah.
And yoga really helps people who are on the spectrum too with autism in a different way. I mean, sometimes people get too much sensorial information and it's overwhelming for them in that situation, and yoga can be very calming. I mean, we cannot underestimate the value of the breathing in yoga, because the breathing is so great for concentration and calming down. And I believe that it helps pain management. You know, like when you're in labor, I was trained to breathe like in Lamaze, but that's hyperventilation. That actually doesn't really help when you're in a lot of pain. And I don't want to hyperventilate. I want to breathe more deeply, you know? So I think it would be great for differently able people to learn the breathing techniques.